by, everybody. Hello, everybody, and welcome to Sonic Talk number 375, kind of postponed from last week. I was unavoidably detained, so I'm afraid I couldn't make it. But I'm back this week, all fit and fighting fit and everything, and I've even solved some technical issues, which I hope will no longer rear their ugly heads. I want to say thank you very much to our sponsors. Obviously, we have a show sponsor in the form of iZotope. We'll have a message from there later. Obviously, there's a winner from last week's competition, or the week before last, if you can. Anyway, last show's competition, which will be, what was it? It was Brake Tweaker, wasn't it? That's right. And as you know, iZotope have released RX4, so this week it's going to be a copy of RX4. Nice stuff. So anyway, thank you very much, everybody, for joining us. We've got a live chat room, as ever, sonicstate.com/live. If you wonder what the heck I'm talking about, you should just subscribe to us on YouTube, and then everything will become clear. Messages will appear. The weekly nature of the show will be, you know, it'll just be like natural to you, and you'll just see it going. Anyway, if you are watching on this YouTube, then you can watch us live, sonicstate.com/live at 4 p.m. UK time. Right, we've got a new guest. We haven't had her in for a little while. So I'm very pleased to announce that we have Miss Tara Busch from I Speak Machine, not Analog Suicide.
No, well, Analog Suicide's the name of the blog.
That's right.
Yeah, both. Yeah.
So Tara, how the heck are you? It's been a while. I know you've been in England for a while. You're working on some exciting stuff, right?
Yeah, very busy, very crazy. Learning a lot about new synthesizers that I have, vintage synthesizers that I haven't used yet. Mainly preparing for a show at the South Bank Center on Sunday. And this is...
Absolutely, there it is. I Speak Machine, South Bank on Sunday, this Sunday. Tickets available?
Yeah. Of course! No,
they must be sold out by now, surely.
Yes, sold out in 2 minutes.
No,
there are tickets. So it's my new collective with my husband Matt Lewis, and it's an audio-visual collective. He makes the films and I make the music, and we do sci-fi horror films that are created to be screened with me playing the score live.
Wow, that sounds like quite a hairy prospect. How is it?
It's fun. Yeah, it's actually a lot more interesting than it sounds. A lot easier than it sounds.
I'm looking forward to hearing more. What we'll do now, though, I think, is we'll introduce the rest of our guests, and then perhaps we can come back to you and you can tell us in a bit more detail what's going on, because I know Mr. Spears, Dave Spears there, GeForceSoftware.com, who now has, after, 6 years, he's finally plugged an Ethernet cable into his webcam. So now we have almost uninterrupted, high quality, high frame rate, high definition. You can see the synthesizers in the background and everything. How are you, Dave?
I'm good, thank you. Yes, I bought an Ethernet cable. I had somebody install it kind of round the building and in the wall, and I moved the laptop across, so you've got a slightly different view today.
That's what it is. I've got more synthesizer definition. Of course, we know Dave is in his synth cave where he collects. He's like the Ebenezer in a sort of hoarding fashion, not in a kind of stingy fashion, in a kind of collective fashion. So in his synth cave there. Thank you very much for joining us, Dave. We'll also go over to Mr. Robbie Bronneman, who has just come back from tour where he's been MDing and playing live with Mr. Howard Jones, right?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
You sent me some pictures, actually, didn't you? Have you got? Would it be okay for me to show some of those?
Yeah.
Excellent. Let me have a look. In the meantime, so I can probably. I wonder if I can do that. Am I allowed to? Oh, that's interesting. Can I do that? Yeah. This was your setup, because you created these amazing pictures of not pictures, live setup where you've got all these. Yeah, here we go. Let's have another one there. That is astonishing. So that the keyboards are all lit up, and you've got a bank of Novation launch pads there doing light shows too. Awesome
Yeah,
stuff.
that's right.
So, successful set of shows? Because I remember once you said to us there was an issue with one of the machines, and I guess you got to the bottom of all of that, right?
Yeah, it went brilliantly. Yeah, we didn't have any technical issues at all. Had a
Hooray.
few technical issues with Thompson Twins stuff, but we sorted those out. In the first few shows, they're a little bit hairy, but yeah, it was all good. Freaked out a couple of the keyboard players, particularly Angie Pollock, but we got it all back on course, and it was all right.
There you go.
So,
With
yeah.
there it is. Anyway, Robbie, thank you very much for joining us. Robbie's also a composer himself and a producer and songwriter and all of those things. We were going to have Mark Tinney, but I can't see Mark anywhere, so I'm afraid we'll have to do without his company just for now. But Tara, if we could just come back to you. So you're basically doing live soundtrack to the film that you've made with, or Math's made with you, however that's collaborated.
Yes.
And you're doing this with live analog electronics. What the heck are you thinking? Surely, aren't you making your job more difficult?
Dave talked me into it. It's his fault. No, well, we've been here since January, and it was going to initially be quite a short trip. And we wound up staying a lot longer, and then other things started happening, and this gig came up. And I have the only gear that I brought with me, because I was only going to be here a few weeks, was a monotribe, because I just didn't think I was going to be doing anything. So Dave had the genius idea of loaning me a bunch of synths to play from G-Force's arsenal. And yeah, what was I thinking? Yeah, I had to say yes. Why not? So worst that can happen is I'll have a heart attack.
No, I'm sure it'll be fine. So what's the thing? Talk me through the kind of composition process. So is this pre-composed, or have you written the music while you've been in the UK using your monotribe and other instruments, or are you now kind of working on a set of improvisations using these new instruments or old instruments?
None of the performance is improvised. It's all completely, down to every note. I know what's going to happen. There's the instruments that I used on it, again, were loaned to me from Benj and from Dave. I didn't use the monotribe at all on it.
Oh, poor thing.
But yeah, I used some of the soundtrack to one of the films, which is called The Silence, is one that I did last year in Los Angeles.
Okay.
And then Math and I made two more. One is called Gagglebox, and the other one is called There's Someone in the House Next Door. So, and those are two that I scored over here.
Right.
And Dave loaned me an OBA and an Oscar synth, and Benj loaned me a Korg 770S. And nice. I used those, and then Matthew's aunt had this the guts of a piano, the harp of a piano, and it was just like lying around outside, and it was all rained on and rusty and messed up, and leaves and spiders stuck to it. So we grabbed it, put it in the pickup truck, brought it over to the house, and I scored There's Someone in the House Next Door, primarily using that piano and warping the audio and stuff like that, with synths around it and stuff. So it is, yeah, that's how I made them. And so a lot of those things are going to be running on a backing track in Ableton, and also with samples that I'm going to be triggering and stuff. And then I play the synths and I sing as well. So.
Okay. So essentially you've got the kind of structure going on. So, the hit points that you've got, and then you're going to be not improvising, but adding to the bass level of the music over the top with what you're playing live, right?
Yeah, I prefer it that way. I'm afraid that it would kind of misrepresent the film if it were to be improvised. I'm pretty, we're pretty strict about what we want the music to say in the film. So it's not just like an improvised get up there and whoosh around on the film. It's just,
yeah, sure. So what instruments are you going to be playing live? I mean, you've brought together this beautiful collection of synthesizers. Are you going to be making sure you use every single one of them, or how are you?
Yeah. What I told Dave is so I had the Oscar synth. I kept that because it's the only one that's programmable too, and it does sound really beautiful. It has a really, really lovely bass, believe it or not. So that's my bass player. I kind of refer to it as a band. So I've got of them. So I've got Oscar gets to play the bass. There's a Pro One synth, which is still my all-time favorite synth. It may be because it's the first synth I ever got, but I've got that, and I think that's probably my guitar player. And then there's a ARP Odyssey and ARP 2600, and that's Brian Eno.
Okay.
And then SH-101 is the diva backing singer, Claire Torrey from Dark Side of the Moon, I guess. Who knows?
Ah, okay.
So that's my weird little way of looking at it. Keep me sane. So each one I've kind of assigned different parts to, of course, as if they're humans.
Ah, right. Okay. So,
They are.
am I detecting that with the inclusion of the SH-101 as a diva, that's the most electronically difficult to deal with in terms of stability and what have you?
It's weird. It's I think I sorted it out. I sent Dave a few semi-panicked texts like, "We're not staying tuned. It's drifting," and they're supposed to be really stable, but. It was the power button, and we sprayed some contact cleaner in it, nailed it, mushed it a few times, and now it seems to be working okay. It was weird because Dave sent me this link to Vintage Synth Explorer, and it said that the power button and the tuning are kind of affect each other, or the power button affects the tuning. I don't know if they affect each other. But so I noticed yesterday it was starting to drift, and so I stopped and I kind of just tapped on the power button, and it went out of tune. It was just kind of so I did the contact cleaner, mashed it, and then now it seems to be cool. So I don't know.
Right. Dave, I noticed you winced a little bit there. Was there? That was right though, surely, because we've got an SH-101 here that I had to do the comparison between the IRS System 1 and the real thing, and I noticed that when it was just because I was plugging in the gate and CV to hook them up so that they could play the same thing, and that's near the power button, and I noticed it just it like dropped a third or something. It was just like, whoa, what happened there? Then you tap it again and it comes. We got the same problem here, definitely.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's weird. It's quite a well-known issue, I think. It's I kind of read up about it because actually the reason for the 101 was it's really stable, Tara, and you won't have to worry about tuning it multiple times when you're on stage. This will be a really reliable synth. And of course, when this reared its head, it was like, no. And then I looked it up, and it seems to be a fairly common fault, and the cure is the long-term cure is to take apart the power switch
and put a decent one in, I'd imagine.
But the quick fix is just old school. Whack it, contact spray it, whack it.
Right.
So I think we might take the SH2 up just as a kind of backup.
So I mean, in terms of having all of these things live, you're going to be involved in? So are you kind of looking after some of these things, Dave, or are you going to be the man with the spray can rushing on stage with the contacts?
I'll have the spray can and the white gloves. No, it's quite funny. Well, as you know, Chris used to tour a lot with various high-profile artists, and he sort of always missed it. And it's his birthday in a couple of weeks' time, and regularly he's talking, it would be really nice to do like one last tour. But of course, when we're shifting gear around, we realise that we're not spring chickens anymore, and the backs are suffering. So this is a kind of one-off event to sort of make him feel younger. So actually, I volunteered Chris to be Tara's tech for the evening.
About 20 years on me.
Sweet. I'm sure Chris will be very delighted. So are you going to have to acclimatise the synths? I mean, obviously you want to get in there as soon as possible, turn them all on, leave them on, and have you got...
I let them just cook for about a half hour to 45 minutes before I even touch them, especially the 2600, and have to. Because I'm used to it. I mean, with this, it's kind of, it on the face of it, it seems like something that should be really, really daunting and crazy, but it's not. It's really worked out quite beautifully, and it's really fun, and it's challenging, but it's it's one of those things that really make you feel alive when you're playing instead of just doing something easy and doing the same thing over and over. Because like I usually play with just my Voyager,
Right,
And
yeah, and your voice, yeah.
you know, it's really, yeah, and it's really, really reliable and everything, and a few other bits like an omnichord and stuff like that, and I use a lot of Mogafogers, but this is, you know, I think that you have to keep doing these things anyway. You have to keep growing those creative pathways in your head and challenging yourself, but it's been really different and really fun, you know, and I'm really, really happy about it.
So what, I mean, when you say challenging, what has been the most challenging part of the process? I mean, you know, the composition obviously presents its own challenges, and then, you know, the kind of turning it into something that you can perform live. I mean, what's been the most challenging aspect of that, do you think?
Probably just reconfiguring what was just the Moog to everything else. And
okay.
Also getting to know all of the synths. The only one I really, really knew was the Pro One. But I really wanted to learn all of them too. So I had, you know, it was something I really wanted to do. So that was, you know, it was a bit of a learning curve, learning all of those and the ARP 2600. You know, I've only visited one in passing, lusting after it, but I've never been able to actually have one in my possession for a long time and play it. So it was, you know, I had a month to kind of really get these things memorized and in my bloodstream. And, you know, when you're playing live, you just really don't want to be thinking about where the fuck is the filter? Oh, sorry.
That's all right.
Where's the cutoff? And, you know, so
yeah.
It's like, you really want to have them mapped out for a long time. And I'm pretty obsessed about rehearsing anyway. So I'm not someone that just kind of does 2 rehearsals and then does a show. I rehearse like a robot, seriously.
So how long is the show actually going to be? I mean, what's the length of the piece that you are going to have to perform in sort of one go?
We've got the 2 short films that we made here are no, one of them we made here. Those 2 are 6 minutes, and then The Silence is about 34 minutes.
Right.
And then I've cooked up a special song to play at the end if I get an encore.
Ah, okay. So with the 34, I mean, in terms of the way that you've approached it, I mean, you know, the temptation is, or the fashion is with, you know, almost anything to picture, it's just constant music, you know, no matter what. And presumably, you know, because you've been involved in the filmmaking process and what have you, have you given yourself a bit of breathing space in terms of that, or is the music, you know, integrated at all times?
I would say so, but it's very dynamic. You know, there are times when it's really raging, and then there's times when the film takes over. You know, it kind of goes back and forth. But the films that I Speak Machine make are, you know, very much created with the fact that I play the score live in mind.
Yeah.
And so there's a lot of space for the music, but the music is there to kind of, you know, complement the film and not just take over and have it turn into a music video. So we try to keep it quite dynamic too. So yeah.
Excellent. And one of the things that came up with this whole notion, I mean, if we're sort of just drifting into other territory a little bit, is, you know, when you're considering doing a live gig, this goes to everybody, you know, there are points when it's like, okay, at which point do you say, I'm going to have to sacrifice, you know, synth A or synth B and not use it and use something else? You know, what point? I know, Robbie, I'll go to you because you are, you know, Mr. Compact, very kind of sorted out technically. You run everything kind of pretty much in the box, but yet, you know, we can see in your background, you've got a lot of synthesizers and a lot of kind of analog electronics in your general sound. And obviously Howard has a long legacy of that in his past as well. What is that process of getting through? I mean, do you just kind of go no, or do you go maybe, and then it's gradually removed because of the fallibility of that sort of stuff?
Yeah, I mean, we use a lot. I mean, I use a lot in the studio, but everything I do gets printed to audio. So, as you know, every time I use the analogs, I don't try and think about recallability again. I go, that's what I want. I like the sound of that. I'm putting it down. That's the end of it. Moving on. Obviously, that becomes difficult if you need to come back to it. But for the live shows, we just don't run after taking out all his original stuff like Jupiter 8s and going wrong, and even stuff like that, which you think would be pretty good. I remember we did a tour and we had 3 of them by the end of it, and they all kept going wrong. And when we tried to recreate his original rig, which was running the Pro 1 as his sequencer, and he had to write the sequences in backwards on this little step sequencer on this Pro 1, I mean, he's just like, and keeping the tuning in. He just said to me, "I never want to do this ever again. I've done my dues. I don't want to do this ever again." So, you know, now we just don't try and tempt fate. So, everything now for us is totally within the main stage world.
But it is interesting, isn't it? Because you've got bands like Simian Mobile Disco, who've just done their new album, which is purely live electronics and something that they can make live. I mean, they may well have edited and sort of tweaked, but the idea is that it uses that sort of danger. I mean, they're obviously with a lot of gigs, there's things that you don't want to have happen, and there are things that maybe you do. I'm guessing with something where the songs are very structured and specific, like, you know, with 3-minute pop songs, essentially, you know, as the core of what Howard has been, or part of his work has been doing. I suppose that leaves you less room for flexibility. But that
well, actually, we've actually structured what we're doing very open-ended. He's got these massive palettes of sounds that he's built up in main stage, and he's got a Novation Remote SL0, and he can bring loads of different textures in. So we're doing a lot of the songs, particularly songs like Hide and Seek. We just run the core loop sections, and the drummer just plays the very basics, and then the whole arrangement can be changed. He does a lot of improvisation, bringing in different textures and doing different sections, and I kind of just follow what he does. So we're trying to build that kind of flexibility in, but obviously we do that around the Ableton framework. So obviously I can respond to what he does and vice versa. But in terms of sounds, there's still that element of it's a very prepared palette, albeit it might be different every night.
Right, okay. And Dave, I mean, obviously you've got a lot of electronics that you're performing with, live in the room. Does the thought of maybe using that live, I mean, obviously you're doing this kind of vicariously through Tara. She's the one taking all the risks. You're just providing some electronics. I mean, do you miss that aspect of it for yourself?
Part of it, yeah, maybe a bit of it. It's funny, actually, because people have used this room. We do let the odd person, odd being the operative word. No, we let them use this room occasionally, and occasionally they've asked, can we use this particular synth live, or can we take it out on a tour? And we've never let anything out. Obviously we've loaned individual pieces of kit for studio use out, but we've never let anything go out live. But we've always kind of wanted to. It was that idea of, like, you see, I love those seat of the pants things. When I was working with various artists, when something goes wrong, it kind of tests your mettle. And that's the moment where either everything can be a disaster or truly great things can happen. But the idea of putting it out on a tour is, I mean, you really are asking for trouble.
I guess with one-offs.
The fact that this is a one-off, this completely changed everything from our perspective, and we kind of got very excited about it. And obviously it's Tara as well.
So Tara, are you going to document this? Is there a kind of film of the film? Do you see what I mean? Are you recording this for posterity? I mean, the actual performance. I mean, how's that working?
Yeah, I think actually. We're going to have a few people filming it, definitely. I think Dave's actually going to do some stuff too. So a few people coming at sound check to poke my brain, whatever's left. And yeah, definitely recording it. For sure.
And so how are you prior to gigs, just sort of generally speaking? I mean, do you kind of get in the zone? Do you kind of like... do you need to be kind of focused and alone, or do you kind of relish the whole social aspect of it as well, or was something
no socializing? No, I don't near me. No, I have to make sure my voice is warmed up, and then I just have to make sure my confidence is good, and that I'm in a good place where I'm good and mindful and confident going on there, and I'm not that fear, nothing.
No, sure.
And I've done enough shows in this format and enough live scores to where at least I have some sort of reference point. If I do get nervous, I think to myself, you've done some really good gigs before. You were fine. You killed it. So don't worry about it. You're going to do it again because that's what you've got to refer to.
Yeah, absolutely. Experiences a bit. So
I can really let myself spiral and be like, oh my god.
Well, I think that's kind of true with anybody, I think, to a degree. I mean, do you find that the performance of to a film has a different feeling, I suppose, than playing, because you've played live in terms of your own music, where you're also alone pretty much on stage with your stuff, and there's a backing track element to it as well. Is there a difference, or do you find that they feel kind of the same essentially?
Yeah, I think they feel quite different, because when there's a lot of differences, really, because with the film, it's kind of like you're collaborating. It's much more collaborative. You're sharing the stage with the film. The film is as if it's an entity to me, and so it does have a really collaborative thing. I don't feel like I'm standing up there on my own.
Right, I gotcha.
I'm up there with the film, and it's but I still get the pleasure of playing, a live show and performing. So I do love to perform, and I've been doing it for a long time, and I have to do it.
Yeah.
So you can still see, you still get the feedback from the audience, for better or for worse. Usually, I've been lucky; it's been good so far. So it's it's similar in the sense, just physically you're standing up there playing to people, but I think it's a lot more laid back. You can see people's attention shift between you and the film, because there are parts when the film takes over and there are parts when I take over. And so it's but it's different than being in a band, because with a band it just seems like it's all about you, and you're just throwing yourself at the people,
right,
at your audience, and you're just gushing it all out. It's a lot more. This is a lot more reserved.
Yeah,
in a way.
I suppose, and I guess you don't have to think about in between scene banter either. You don't have to, because you don't have to tell any jokes or explain what was behind that. Is there a talk aspect to what you're doing as well? Will you be kind of Q&A as to how it put together, or is it just purely the performance that you're doing?
We'll see what happens. When we played Moogfest a few years ago, we kind of did an impromptu Q&A, because people just came to the stage and started asking us stuff. So we just sat down and had a little chit chat with everybody. So, but yeah, that'd be cool. I'm totally up for that. If if the crowd's up for it, we'll do it.
Excellent.
So, yeah, because me personally, I always love to know how, if I go to a show and it blows me away, I want to know how they did it, and I want to know more about it. So I try and, think of what it is I would want in a show and give that. So I'm all about doing Q&As, and I don't keep many secrets about what I do. So.
Well, that's the nature of a life led online, isn't it, to a degree as well? I mean, that's just the nature of accessibility, what have you, too. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
At this point, I think we're going to now take a message from our sponsor at the beginning of the show. Obviously, we talked about iZotope, who sponsor the show, and they have actually just announced RX4, which is a major update to their audio restoration. We've also, after the ad, we'll be announcing the winner of the last competition and setting the new one, so do stay tuned. RX4, yes, the Emmy award-winning RX software. It's the best-sounding audio repair toolkit on the market. Musicians swear by it, and sound designers. It's just launched. It's got several new features. Clip gain, dialogue denoiser is now available in the standard version as well as the other one, as the advanced. RX Connect, you can streamline your process with a round-trip workflow of compatible work tool with Pro Tools, Logic, and other popular hosts. In post-production, music production, and mastering, the advanced version boasts additional time-saving features, and you can deliver great sounding results with things like the leveler, EQ match, and also I believe there is an ambience match as well, which sounded quite interesting. So you can basically set all kinds of things to match up, which in terms of post and video, as well as many other things, certainly synthesizers, what have you, is an extremely useful set of features. Basically, if you want to find out any more, iZotope.com/RX4 is the place to go. I'm not sure if there's a 10-day demo for this. It doesn't say in my notes, but as with a lot of their products, there are. So do go and check it out. It's really quite a major advance to the RX tool set. And as we know, we've been using it here on our videos a lot of the time. It really does kind of make a lot of difference. And not only that, but fixing things particularly with knackered old electronics, Dave, that you can sort out, really does work a treat. So as we said before, we want to thank them very much. In fact, our iZotope are coming here tomorrow, and we're going to shoot a kind of presentation with the features of RX4. So hopefully we'll have a kind of real in-depth as to what's going on with it. So stay tuned for that. But in the meantime, we also ran a competition last week. Last show was Break Tweaker, and the winner of Break Tweaker was picked at random. I use something called Topsy.com, which is really good for searching tweets, where you get a whole load of them and you can count them up, just in case you're interested. This week, Sonic Talk 374's winner, who wins a copy of Break Tweaker, is a chap called Raj. His Twitter handle is at RMG Production, at RMG Production. If you get in touch with me, maybe tweet something out, and then we can get your email address, and the iZotope Fairy will be able to bestow the gift into your inbox. She will be here tomorrow and probably travelling, so it might not happen instantly, but please do get in touch, and congratulations for winning. And of course, we've also got another competition, because iZotope just seem to want to give away everything they have on a weekly basis with the show, so lucky old you, eh? So if I just switch to there, you can win iZotope RX4. What you need to do, you need to be on Twitter. So honestly, it's worth setting up a Twitter account just to enter these competitions, because the odds are actually pretty good. So if you want to win RX4, this is the standard edition, I believe. You want to send the hashtag audio repair, and send that to @SonicNick and @iZotope Inc. And then I will collect all the winners up and pick from a random number generator, and we pick the winner. So congratulations to this week's winner, and go to it. Remember, iZotope RX4, you can win it. Hashtag audio repair, @SonicNick, @iZotope Inc. So really, you've got to go for it. Oh, Dave, you're a big fan of it. Have you checked out any of the RX4 features yet?
Yep.
Good?
Brilliant.
Of course.
No, honestly, it's saved my bacon on. I could go on about RX for yonks, but honestly, it's like every time I fire that up and do something, and I haven't, if I have a problem and I go RX and I go into it, I never cease to stop using it and just go, wow.
Excellent.
Which is brilliant.
Well, it is.
So
it is brilliant, and we're very fortunate to have them as a show sponsor, and they do get. I think they get good value out of us, because they get a bit of afters as well, because we're all users of the stuff, which is the perfect match, I think, in many ways. Oh, Tara, do you find much use for that kind of thing in your world? I guess if you're doing video,
God, we haven't gotten around to using RX4 yet. I was always interested in using it, not really for its intended purpose, but to use it in, to mess with audio a bit more.
That's right.
And I guess a lot of people do that now, but it would seem it would be fun. I just haven't gotten around to it. But I know they're coming out with new ones and stuff. So
yeah, absolutely awesome.
Yeah, I want to try it. I actually use Nectar a lot for vocals, and I've got Break Tweaker. Can't wait to use that. I haven't yet. And Ozone and Alloy, and I just love all their stuff. It's awesome.
Yeah, absolutely. I downloaded Break Tweaker a couple of weeks ago and had a little play around with it, and that's pretty cool too. Robbie, I know you use a lot of iZotope products, as with many other professionals, and so yeah, awesome stuff.
It is good.
What I was going to suggest now, we've got a couple more topics that would be worth just sort of going into, because there's been actually, for September, there's been an awful lot of product releases, which is kind of a bit mind-blowing, really. We're not... This seems to be happening, because normally it all happens. You get a bunch of stuff released or announced in the spring and with NAMM and Music Messer, and then it comes on stream in time for Christmas. But now what's happening is there's a sort of September window where it's all happening. And Korg have gone a bit crazy this year, as well as the Volca sampler. We've got the Electribe, the new Electribe, and they are starting to look pretty interesting. I just wondered if any of that stuff, because it's machinery for sort of making music there. Robbie, have you seen any? I guess you've been on tour, but anything that you've kept up?
I've kept to date with it all as usual. Yeah.
Excellent.
Yeah. Everybody on the tour bus sitting there with their iPhones all the time. Nobody talks.
Well, there's the sort of product shot of that. There's quite a lot of stuff. One thing that was really interesting, I think this might be this video, is the what's it called? It's the Clip Hit, I think it's called. And this is their kind of little mini drum thing. Now you've got a multi-channel version. You can just kind of clip it onto loads of different things and play. And I thought that looked pretty nifty, actually. Just a shame it hasn't got any MIDI, because that would be really awesome to use. But anything of the specific releases that kind of interest you? The Electribe looks interesting because it's just got bling lights. Did you see there's lights actually underneath it that the light up the desktop? And I can see that you're...
car.
You what?
Boy race a car.
I was when I saw it at BPM on Sunday. I was wondering whether or not it should also have, you know, that thing that those kind of those cars have that sort of jack themselves up at the front. It should have that as well, just to complete the picture.
I actually quite like the look of that little sampler.
The Volca.
Yeah, the Volca sampler. I mean, that looks like a lot of fun. There's something about getting your hands on a sample like that in an old school kind of way. It's different to doing it in the computer.
Definitely. I don't know I haven't actually looked to see what the sample specs for that are, but I mean, we've got a demo here of it as well. I might be able to fast forward that a little bit and get into.
It's only input via an iOS app.
That's the weird thing. So I don't know how much timing there is in there, but yeah, Dave, that they need an Android app at the very least as well to make that kind of work. But crazy business. I mean, they seem to be on, as we know, Korg generally, it seem to be kind of quite on fire when it comes to building stuff. Their release schedule, it sort of puts all the other big manufacturers to shame, really, or at least, I suppose, in the space that we're interested in. I mean, I'm sure Yamaha released a ton of wind instruments or whatever, you know, in a different music space, but you know, Korg are very focusing on this electronic thing. Any of that? So, do you fancy one of those? Because I know you were quite keen on the Volcas when they were first announced. Any of these float your boat?
It's funny because we've got 3 Electribes Mark IIs, and they're still in boxes and stuff. And I've kind of been going through them. You know, this kind of came as part of that probate collection. And they're quite interesting. I quite like the Volca sample thing, and I think the iOS app is obviously for in-app purchases, isn't it? I think that's
I'm guessing
what the angle will be from that perspective. The drum thing really intrigued me, the clip drum thing, but the sounds sort of sounded really cheesy in the demo. I just really love the idea, you know, when I was a kid, sort of tapping on the dinner table and your parents going, "Shut up." I quite like the idea of kind of continuing to do that, but with clips and a speaker. But then I thought, well, I mean, the sounds on that video were a bit kind of general MIDI.
Yeah, I know what you're saying, but that doesn't mean that there's not more. I mean, I think the thing about that is it doesn't look particularly expandable, but I don't know enough about it yet. I know, Tara, are you a big fan of? I mean, you know, primarily your stuff is sort of analog electronics. You know, what about the notion of sort of sampling and tweaking with samples and that sort of thing?
I would love to try that. There's I'm watching that demo just now. It made me think of there's a show over here called Utopia. I don't know if you guys have seen it.
No,
but
I'm not.
It has the most, Dave, you know, it's got just the most badass score ever. My favorite composer, he's amazing. But he uses a lot of, I think he uses a lot of sampling and hardware sampling and stuff like that. And so seeing that demo made me think of that Utopia sound for a second. So yeah, I would. And I'm inspired by it, so I'd totally love to mangle with it a bit. Yeah, because I use the EXS24, but I never really got into sampling very much. So I'd love to.
It's kind of removed, isn't it? The sort of notion, the sample playback is very different to the creation of samples, and that notion of being able to do it live, real time with I think there's Electribe sampler as well, which wasn't available. We didn't see that at BPM, but I think there's another model which is geared more towards samples, and that's going to be very interesting. I mean, the other thing that's really interesting about this new range of Korg products, as well as with Gadget, because we did Sonic Touch 34, where we looked at the Gadget update, is the fact that you can create all of these little pattern-based things and then export them as clips into sort of formatted Ableton Live documents. So you load them into Live, and there they all are in individual tracks, in clips and scenes and whatever. That looks really interesting. The ability to be able to sort of noodle, because these things are all pretty much all battery powered, and then just with the press of a button and a slip in an SD card in the slot, you've got an Ableton Live session where you can continue to work and add to it. I know, Robbie, you've been on the bus. You know, do you find yourself composing, or do you like to take the time off and read a book or something?
Every time on the tour, I always take a little setup. Last time I took my little OP1 and all that stuff, and then I just didn't do anything. And that's the problem. I just always have all this great intention to do it on the bus, and then you just get so sidetracked. So this time I just had my iPad and I did a little bit of stuff. But I tell you, the thing I'm really looking forward to is this is this product coming out called Mojis. Have you seen that?
No.
MOGEES. And it was like a Kickstarter. It's really, really exciting product. And I'm looking forward to getting my hands on that. It's a little bit similar to the Korg in that you clip it to things. But it's really amazing what it can do.
Let's have a look. I found one there. Here we go. Mojis, play the world, watch the video. Let's have a look.
Yeah,
I can't. Actually, this isn't going to work because I haven't got the audio set up.
I know this. I know
describe
this.
it.
About this.
Oh, so it's like a sensor that goes into your... there was an iPad app that did that took the mic, wasn't there? It was from Thumb Jam. I can't remember what it was called.
But you can actually... Yeah,
I'm not going to be able to play. Oh, so it'll process the input from the mic in real time. And that does look quite interesting. As long as you can do something with it, because that's all great, but then you need a mobile recorder, and then you need all the other stuff to kind of make that into a performance, or am I getting that wrong?
Yeah, and you can use it for triggering as well.
Ah, okay.
Yeah, so it's a whole lot more than that. But yeah, I'm looking forward to that. Yeah.
Well, that's interesting because that kind of also leads on to that notion of there's a whole bunch of apps that now allow you to interface directly with analog equipment. I've got a web page here. There was a piece by Peter Kern on Create Digital Music. This called the Trigger Box. Let me have a look. I think, and the fact that you can take, trigger outputs, CV outputs, and actually drive some of this equipment and start to integrate that as a controller. That's quite interesting as well. I mean, is that something? I mean, I don't know how you work with your analog gear, Robbie, but I mean, do you tend to perform it rather than hook it up to MIDI and try and clock it up to the computer, or what? How do you tend to work?
I've got the Expert Sleepers ES4 in the rack, so I can hook it up through Logic, all sample accurately and stuff. But generally, I tend to just like to play them. Really, I just like to play them, put them in, and then just like deal with it afterwards. Because I find that by all that stuff of trying to get it in time and all that, you just lose the creativity. So I just like to just do whatever I can on the fly, and then deal with it afterwards in audio. Right,
I gotcha. And Tara, I mean, when you're writing, how do you? Because I mean, I know there seem to be two schools of thought with large analog systems. You get the one which is maybe the sort of Richard Devine kind of area where you create these monster patches and let them sort of evolve and almost pilot that. You curate them, but you let them do their thing, and obviously you're behind the making of it, or you just do everything sort of naturally and don't hook things up together. I mean, which school do you tend to subscribe to?
I just like to try whatever I can get my hands on, to be honest. I don't think there's any right or wrong.
Do you find yourself hooking things up together, or do you prefer instruments that you play from a keyboard and then interact with at the time?
I don't know. I do. I'm not quite sure if I know what you mean.
Well, I mean, in terms of clocking things and CV and gate to MIDI and all of that kind of stuff, just to get it,
CV, yes. No clocks, no MIDI. I almost never use MIDI, believe it or not.
No, I can. I mean, I think it's definitely a way of working for sure.
Yeah. No, it just happens that way. I don't feel like I have any rules or anything against it, but just what I do, I just happen to run in and play something and have things hooked up a certain way, but I don't really spend a lot of time. I definitely don't clock things. No. I haven't gone into that territory yet, and I know it's insane.
Well, no, that's not at all, because then you can play a performance, and because obviously there's so much you can do on the timeline in the DAW where you can conform it and get it to kind of get closer to what you think you meant at the time, or just put it into record or whatever.
Well, yeah, I do a lot of definitely use a lot of warping and Logic, and in doing that, it actually sometimes can create some really interesting accidents too.
Sure.
So,
So is that what you're composed? Because you were talking about Ableton that you're using for the play out, as it were, for the live performance. Do you compose in Logic and then use Ableton for that specific purpose?
Exactly. Yeah.
Right.
So I do. Yeah, I don't use Ableton in the studio at all.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. Interesting. Dave, you've got a large wall of stuff there. I mean, I don't know, like you, maybe me, you and Robbie, we kind of came almost at it from when you're working in the remix world, where you've more often than not got to come back and repeat things. So I used to come at it whereas everything is clocked up, everything is kind of synced, and so when you fire up that different version of the song, it all plays out live again and does all of those things. Are you finding yourself still, or I don't know if you did do that, but I'm assuming perhaps that might have been the case. I mean, you find that you're kind of going more freestyle.
I like this idea of no, actually no, no. The dream is in here to have everything clocked, absolutely everything clocked, so that we can hit go, and then we just move between the kind of stations. But I mean, what I use depends on the job that we need to do at that particular moment. Sometimes like Tara was saying, you know, she hasn't plugged a MIDI lead in for ages. The other day I was hunting around for 3 MIDI leads, and it was like, wow, I'd forgotten how long it was since I'd plumbed in a MIDI lead. And we've been doing a lot of CV gate stuff. Yeah, clocking is the big thing. I mean, we've got CR78, we've got one of the CR8000s, we've got the 808, the little low behind mini sequencer, and obviously the modular sequencer, the ARP sequencer, and the ultimate dream is to have absolutely everything clocked, ideally from the computer, or even just, you know, one central device, which is why that Roland thing was really interesting. And then obviously have that out to the JP8, and we've got a couple of JP6. I mean, it's never ending, isn't it? It's just never ending.
I mean, and that's the issue.
I want this kind of
that's
golden clock.
Yeah, I think that's the thing. That's kind of what you were saying, wasn't it, to a degree, Robbie? It's, you know, as soon as you start getting into, all right, we just need to hook, then suddenly you've kind of lost that moment. It's the time. And I much prefer not having to do that. In fact, last remix I did, it was literally, I built the basics of it and then just recorded a load of analog into it, and just that was what it was. And it was kind of liberating, because when they kind of go, can you just change everything? It's like, well, I could, but I have to re-record it all. It's not going to, you know, it's a different thing. So you kind of trust... Sorry, go, Robbie.
No, I was just going to say, at the very least, I think, certainly for me, I want to have everything plugged in, at least all the analog stuff, because I just can't bear it when you go, oh, right, let's find out if I've got a space to plug this in, and have I got a kettle lead to power it up and all that. You just lose the will to live. So at least having it all, you know, so it can make sound, and then deal with it after that, you know, the next time.
Ready to go. I'm guessing, Tara, that must be, I mean, because you seem to have quite an eclectic mix of equipment in terms of, and ever changing. How do you kind of set up, how do you set up your workspace then?
Well, it's quite, I think it's pretty simple compared to what a lot of my friends have. I have a lot of analog stuff, but I guess I just kind of get used to where everything is, and I just come in, like Robbie said, I just make sure everything's hooked up and turned on, you know, ready to go. I never know what's going to happen or where it's going to go, and it just really sucks if you're in the middle of something and you're like, yeah, you know, where's that, you know, where's the kettle lead, or blah, blah, blah. It's just ridiculous. So in that sense, yeah, I just turn everything on, and in that sense, it's also kind of, it's more inspiring that way anyway, instead of just sitting there with one synth on. It's like, you know, it's like nice to have the whole room buzzing.
Yeah, you know? All the lights on, everything blinking away. Absolutely. I totally got it. Yeah, YouTube police in the chat room saying I put him out of the job this week because I haven't played anything that's copyright yet, which is actually true. I did get a notification today that I don't even remember. You may not. Episode, I think it's 325, when we were talking about the Chapman stick. There was a new Chapman stick that came out, and it's like almost a year ago. And I just got a notification today that my YouTube that video had now been demonetized because it had some King Crimson footage which I was using to illustrate what a Chapman stick was. It's bonkers.
If that's the last one you've got, there should be an avalanche of them coming, shouldn't there?
Yeah, well, I think they've obviously, the YouTube police are backed up a little bit, so they're probably, you know, just working their way through those claims. So let me see what else we've got.
Well, Nick, Math's just arrived and he wants to say hi.
Ah, Math, Mr. Math Lewis, hair director. How are you doing?
We're having a fight. We're having a fight over camera space here.
Ah, well, you know, you're behind the camera generally. Is that right? Yeah.
Well, I'm never allowed to go in front of it, so I don't know why.
He doesn't allow himself to.
I was interested actually to find out, because presumably you're as well as wanting the sound and everything to look to sound great for the gig. How are you projecting? Is there some sort of, are you getting to play with some really tasty stuff
with a projector?
Just a projector. Haven't you got anything super massive?
No, we're relying totally on the South Bank, praying that. I mean, they're an amazing bunch of people there. So the facilities they have are next to nothing. So we're literally just have a VGA out of our Mac, and that's just relying on their genius.
Yeah.
Like you rely on an amazing sound person.
Yeah.
Which for the first time in a long time, we have one of my favorite ever sound people, which is Baz, who does John Fox's stuff.
Ah, okay. So Tara, you're going to be feeding out all of the instruments discreetly rather than supplying a mix. Is that the way it's going to work?
Actually, no. I'm actually running everything through my Motu Traveler.
Okay.
A very old Motu Traveler, but it still works and it's wonderful. So
1985.
No,
yeah,
not quite that old.
No,
I think the film's 1985, isn't it?
So
well,
I'm doing it the same way I always have.
That would be interesting if you to take the concept to its logical extreme. You should be not using technology that has any place in the world after 1985, Matt. That's the challenge, perhaps, for the next project.
Well, we funny enough, we were down at Ben Jedward's studio in Cornwall the other day, and we were. I don't know whether I talked about any of the projects, and shut me up if I go off topic a little bit. But he has a bunch of old video cameras from the 80s, and the thought of putting projects on that to really genuinely give them that kind of feel, and obviously using the equipment around those same periods of time it's just, I don't know, there's a lot of fun involved in that. Lovely thought to do that.
Yeah.
I mean, as long as you don't have to edit it on those kind of edit screens, and you can
get out a razor blade.
And you have to do analog editing.
That would be a lot. I actually did a course back in the day in the 80s, very early 80s, media studies at Bath Polytechnic, and they had a news studio where you had two Betacam decks, and you had to kind of basically, it was you only had two sources, and that's how you edit. So you'd shovel it all together, and then you have a third machine, and you'd record it to there, rewind about, everything was linked with time. That is exceedingly tedious way of working. I can imagine you'd have to be very you have to be good, because I also noticed I'm going well off topic. There was a series, ITV series called Children of the Stones. You may or may not remember it.
Yeah, we watched it recently, honestly.
Did you? And did you notice how terrible the edits were? So like the sound would just kind of go. So there's obviously, even on a high budget, I don't know who edited it. It wasn't you, was it? No, you're way too young. But I did notice that the editing was absolutely diabolical, and they would have presumably been filming probably on video cameras and using exactly the same sort of processes, two cameras. But yes, it was very interesting the way that all went together. But it had a certain look, didn't it? And that's the sort of thing that I suppose. It doesn't look right in 16:9 though. That's the only problem, Matt. Then you have to do everything in 4:3, and that would be weird.
Well, I don't know. I've seen some films have jumped in theatres I've seen recently have jumped formats. Can't remember which one. There's one film famously that jumped formats a number of times. I won't even remember what it is. Won't bother. But it's interesting to see a film jump from widescreen to 4:3 actually in the theatre, and I've seen that recently, and it worked quite well. You just have to be really good.
Yeah, you have to. I suppose so.
Make sure it's relevant, and that's the problem: being really good.
Maybe what we'll start seeing is people actually filming. So when you see those iPhone videos that are just 16:9 but that way, you get a release like that.
I just want to go into the cinema and see the screen that way. That's what we want.
Maybe you should try that on the South Bank. Maybe you should hit that one on the South Bank show team, like maybe about 6:30 when you say, "Oh, by the way, we want to," Yeah,
What
flip.
way?
Yeah.
It's vertical.
I know our sound check is done, but can we? Yeah.
Can we change the screen around, please?
So, Tara, are you going to get plenty of time to set up? I mean, what time do you got to get in? Because the show starts, what, 7:45? Is that right?
Yeah. The opening act, I must encourage whoever's going to catch the opening act. They're called Cuts. It's actually a guy called Anthony Tombling from Bristol. He's on Inveda's label, and he's incredible, astounding, beautiful music, audiovisual. Really dark, so it's incredible. So he's opening, and then I think I go on at 9. Sound check. I think we get there around 2.
Okay, so you should have a reasonable amount of time.
Yeah, set up. So yeah, I just want to like get everything set up really quickly and turned on and warmed up, and then we'll see what happens.
Yeah.
Oh, and also, can we? I don't know whether you guys have mentioned this before. I hope so, but can we just say an enormous thank you to your own Andy Mack for the insane amount of time and pure quality of genius of director of photography in the silence.
Oh, yeah, I'm sure he will appreciate that. I think he's going to come up, so he said get him on the guest list, is what he said.
Oh, he's on the guest list. God, yeah.
So are you, actually.
Excellent.
And genuinely, without his help, the film never would have been made, not even close to it. So,
well, I'm sure he'll appreciate that. Thank you.
Yeah,
very true.
Yeah.
There is one final topic which is a bit lighter that I wanted to end on before we finish up, and there was a Reddit thread, which was what was your first release? And I thought this could be interesting. So I'm wondering, so the first tune, piece of music, whatever that was released with on vinyl or whatever it was sold out there in some kind of format, and I'm going to come to. Dave first, because I don't want to give you too much time to think about it, so that we might get something unusual out of you.
I was part of a steel band collective as a youngster, and the band decided to do a Christmas record, and under the name of the Friends, I think we were called, and it was called A Bouquet for Christmas. And it was a single, and it was amazing. It was released to absolute outstanding silence.
Oh, well, that's good though. So when would that have been roughly?
About 1980.
Wow.
I can still. The worst thing is, it was so cheesy. I can still remember every single line. On Christmas Day, I'll give you a bouquet.
Nice rhyming. Good scanning. Okay, that's cool. That's a pretty good start. So, Mr. Robert Broniman.
Yeah,
your first release, and I don't want any. I'm not going to talk about that one. I want to talk about the one that.
No. Well, my first ever release as an artist was on a label called Lakota, which is also a club in Bristol, which I think is still there as well.
That's right, Moon Street. I think that is, isn't it?
Yeah, and it was called 3D, the track, and I remember it coming out, and then the next week I remember driving along in my car and hearing Pete Tong playing it from Ibiza and being very, very excited.
Yeah, that's the sort of stuff.
So
did you mix that in studio, or was that the kind of home scenario for that one?
I did it in my place I had in Bristol at the time. Yeah, so yeah, it's just you get a great kick, don't you? The first time you go to a club and you hear your music, or first time you hear it on the radio, it's like one of those things that you only get that one time. And, I just remember that. It's great.
Oh, well, that's awesome. And Miss Tara Busch. I know you've been involved in lots of recordings, for other people and under your own stuff. So you could choose whether it's for somebody else or for your as yourself as your first one. It's entirely up to you.
I was 18 years old, and it was my band in North Carolina. We were called Dalai Lama, and our album was called Quarter Till Euphoria. Available now in any recyclable CD bargain bins in Charlotte. You want it?
Excellent.
We were like a psychedelic funk grunge thing. Amazing bass player. Actually, all the musicians I played with were really good, but we all played at the same time, very loud. So
lots of notes all at the same time. Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah. So, but it was a blast, and I didn't go to university for that reason, and it was great.
Oh, that's fantastic.
Yeah.
Yours, Nick.
Mine. I'm trying to think. It seems it's such a long time ago. I think it was probably Neil Davidge's band, who I forget what they were called, who's the guy who I met actually quite recently. He's the guy who produced a lot of stuff with Massive Attack. You know, he's responsible for that track with the Cocteau Twins singer, which I think anybody who could do that is a genius. And he actually, before he got involved with that, he was I mean, he may still be a really, really good singer. And he had a band, a large band, and I helped them in the studio, and it was called People Get Along or something like that. And it was about that time when remixes were starting to happen, and I kind of was involved in the recording or the something of the process of that. I think that was the first one. It was just before Snap, I've Got the Power, that sort of period, I think, something like that. But the first, and then it was either that or it might have been, I worked with this rapper locally called Wiz Fresh and the Revelation 3.
Wiz Fresh. That's fantastic.
And he did a track which was called "We've Got Our Own Style," and it used basically pretty much all of the samples from David Bowie Fashion. And it was he had some fantastic ideas, and I put it together in my S900. I think that was probably the first one.
Awesome.
There we go.
Very good.
Wiz, it might even be online somewhere. I know that he was involved in working with somebody who was on or been on X Factor subsequently. He's got a studio himself and is, you know, doing stuff still. So
I have to say, although mine was incredibly cheesy and totally naff, the engineer from the studio called me up and said, "Oh, would you play keyboards on this track I'm doing for Les Dawson?"
Whoa!
That's absolutely true. It was called, and I did, and it was called Disco Bingo, and it was him and was it Roy Kinnear going Disco Bingo, Full House, and it was just this kind of keyboard vamping, house vamping thing. Brilliant.
Did you have to play it all wrong though? The chords wrong.
Yeah, I was going to say what.
No, I was so disappointed because obviously I'd have done that really well.
Because really, Les Dawson, and for those who don't, is a UK comedian, a brilliant comedian, and he used to play. He had this sketch where he'd kind of go up to the piano and he'd play, and he was a really, really good pianist. But he was so good that he could just kind of do all this stuff and really, you know, where he sort of go up and play the note on the end with the finger. But he would just get every note once in a while completely wrong, and it was just comedic genius. He was a very, very good. Anyway, so if you get the chance to see that. Dave, I am massively impressed that you played on a Les Dawson record. That is
I don't think I've ever topped that since.
That is absolutely awesome. We're all speechless. I don't think that can be topped. I really don't. I think that has got to be it. Sorry, Robbie.
No, I was going to say, we were talking about this on tour, and our drummer, who's played with everybody, the pinnacle of his career was playing on a Keith Harris record.
Whoa, awesome.
Yeah, he played on a track for Orville.
For those of you who don't know, perhaps our US listeners, Keith Harris is a ventriloquist who had a duck that he would have, and it used to say, "I can fly." And that he was basically about the time when he used to get Saturday night variety TV. He was, yeah. So yeah, awesome.
Describing Orville as a duck is very kind.
Yeah, well, it had. I think 3 of those letters were right. Anyway, so that's kind of it. On that note, I think that's a good place to end. So I want to say thank you very much. And before we go, obviously, Tara Busch playing live at South Bank at the Purcell Room. 7:45 doors, I Speak Machine, and is it 3 short films you're doing, or yes, the soundtrack to 3 films?
Yes.
Are you going to finish up with the long one, or do you start with the long one?
We're going to finish up with the long one, and the soundtrack to that, another shameless plug, is coming out on the soundtrack is coming out on Lex Records on November 24th.
On vinyl.
On vinyl.
Only vinyl. Awesome.
Yes. Vinyl and digital download, no CD.
So hold on, the film is 35 minutes long, so you can't fit it on one side. So it'll be an A side and a B side and everything.
Yeah, it's an extended soundtrack, so it's the soundtrack of the film with additional.
Okay, gotcha.
So yeah, it's a 40-minute album.
Yeah.
Kind of thing.
Brilliant. Well, thank you very much for joining us, Tara and Matt. Great to see you both. I will try and get up. I would love to. I have a feeling I may. Well, we'll see. If I can, I will. I know Andy's coming, so he can tell me about it if I don't make it. I know Dave Spears, you'll be there as well.
Yeah, I've got weapons.
Weapons.
I'll be there with Knives, flails, nunchucks, everything. Just stay away from the gear, people.
Don't touch it.
That's my job. Yeah.
Excellent. Okay, well, thank you very much, Dave Spears, for joining us as well.
Thank you.
And also, oops, that's not Robbie. Robbie Bronneman, Robot Studios in the Southwest. Are you back for a while now? Is that the touring season over, or have you going back out on the road?
No, I'm back now. I'm just starting a US animated movie school next week. So, yeah.
Excellent.
So
I've got the Warner Brothers sound effects CD if it's any use.
I want it.
Okay, might hit you up for that.
And Hanna-Barbera. Anyway, Tara and Math, thank you very much. Analog Suicide, don't forget to go to the gig. Dave Spears, Robbie Bronneman. That's it for this week. Thank you all for watching. And remember, if you want to enter the competition for iZotope, you've got to watch back in the show. If you skipped ahead, you've missed it. I might put it in the show notes. But thank you very much, everybody, for watching. Thank you, everybody in the chat room. It's been a bumper week, as ever. A fulsome chat room. I think that's what I'm not supposed to say, so I'm going to say it. Fulsome, 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 fulsome. There we are. Thank you very much, everybody, and we will see you next time. So I pressed the fade to black button, I believe. There it goes.